To preface, there's a countdown on the Berserk website once more, in much the same fashion as the Berserk exhibition, though this time we have an anime visual for the Behelit instead of manga pages. The relevance for the manga pages was that this was Miura's art for the exhibition, and here it is related somewhat to the Golden Age anime. Could this be alluding to another anime? This timer counts down to about 10 episodes into the Memorial Edition, a re-release of the movies which would coincide with the episode containing the eclipse. Set your expectations in check because it could be nothing. Hopefully the rest of this video will help people keep things in check. The 2012 to 2013 movie trilogy by Studio 4C covered the Golden Age arc a little liberally to the manga, and so this televised edition is with minor fixes, a couple new scenes, improvements, and a few new lines here and there to already existing scenes. We're still absent any lengthy backstory for Guts, and we're more than likely not getting Wild either. That seems to be the status quo for the content thus far. Anything more than that is guesswork, especially when you factor in the runtime for the movies altogether. 77 minutes for the first, 98 minutes for the second, and 113 minutes for the third film. Taking out the intro and the credits, which adds up to around 18 extra minutes of non-content, leaves us with a total content runtime of 270 minutes. Divide that into about 22 minutes of usual content that you get for your average episode, and we're left with 12 1/4 of an episode. So overall, we can expect there to be a total of around 15 minutes of bonus material here to get the rounded 13 episode count. But it might be less than this, especially if they cut corners like they have so far. But either way, it's nothing too special. I wouldn't expect Wild or Guts' backstory at a later point. Apparently, this was going to be aired regardless of Kentaro Miura's death, making the Memorial tagline a later edition. This release wasn't necessarily going to be a perfect version of the movies, but a re-release with minor improvements. They brought back a small amount of staff from the movies apparently, and it looks like they mainly used the CGI anime models, spruced them up a bit, and then cobbled together some new content. The minor improvements that we see in every episode are wrinkles on faces, hand-drawn details on CGI heads, and it does seem to reduce the lifelessness that the models had, which is good, but these improvements are very much doing the bare minimum, especially when this new content is fully CGI. The director, Yuta Sano, had an interview after the first episode aired where he talked about the issues that come with splicing 3 cinematic narratives into a dozen episodes. He didn't clarify what lengths or effects it took on the show, but less than a week later and one Forces music video later, we can see what he means. Episode 2's runtime, where it comes to content, is 16 minutes. There is a 4-minute music video preceding the intro, which adds up to a standard 26 minutes, if you put the credits in there too. Unfortunately, for those unfamiliar with Berserk, this sequence ends up spoiling what is to come, with the eclipse and dozens of other scenes being shown in the second episode. I think the defense is yes, pretty self-explanatory. This anime is intended for those who have already been reading Berserk and are watching a memorial edition to Miura through this re-release. So all spoilers are fair game, but I think it goes without saying that perhaps episode 2 wasn't the place for it. I think I would have preferred a Gambino flashback to the Bonfire of Dreams, and that probably would have added up the runtime similar to that of the music video. Put the music video in the Bonfire of Dreams episode instead of having that scene. This facet has made some think that this is more a cash grab than a genuine effort. 97% old footage reworked in a minimal way. It certainly isn't the adaptation that anybody asked for. The footage in question even has shorter cuts for some scenes. Moments that linger for dramatic effect or give a bit of time for the audience to chew on a moment have been truncated to fit the 20-minute time slot. This makes the 5-minute Forces music video all the more nonsensical. Why cut anything or remove the opening of episode 1 to put back in a blanket 5 minutes? If time and time again we get diminishing returns, a movie series with 30% bad CGI, a TV series with 90% terrible CGI, and then a re-release where the only new footage is 100% CGI, in a franchise where, all feelings aside, the only thing the public have complained about is the CGI, then I think the only question we have left to ask ourselves is this: do we really want to go through this again? I don't think Berserk is unadaptable or anything, but whoever it is that calls the shots at Berserk Film Association, probably at this point someone high up in Young Animal or Hakusensha, whoever it might be, they aren't willing to sign off on a high cost investment. Even for a 90s anime, Berserk 97 was a cheap show, made cheap and aired cheap, every episode in the wee hours of the morning. Bonus footage for the films back in the day speaks of Studio 4C wanting to do this and that, but not having the budget for it. There won't be a magically good adaptation of Berserk because it needs money, and someone in a high enough place of power, probably someone way smarter than me that knows better, but someone up there nevertheless, is tight-fisted, even for their flagship series. It goes against every fibre of my being to say this, but I hope it isn't a new Berserk anime. If it is, will I go through this whole song and dance again? Yes, I started this channel as a live reactor for Berserk 2016 and slowly came to the realization that this was not a good show at all. But if it is an anime, I am all out of hope that those responsible would ever treat the project with the means it requires. If you're excited for the countdown, enjoy. I want to be wrong and I want you to be right. This isn't supposed to be CGI slander. If they wanted to do wild and that was CG, then there's a defense that requires a lot of moving, choreography, there's a lot going on. It's one of the main reasons the trilogy ended up largely CG to begin with. But here we have an extra scene, and it is minimal. If so desired, they could just do static 2D drawings. The CG isn't bad, it's been 10 years and it looks a lot better. It just seems like it would have been an opportune time to create more 2D Berserk, especially in the aftermath of its most recent adaptation. They even patch up some old CG here, so on some level they know that the CG literally had flaws. But because of the status quo that someone higher up keeps setting as a standard, we are probably doomed to see nothing or Berserk be adapted as cheaply as humanly possible, even at the behest of the quality itself. To talk a little bit more about that, the CGI here looks great, art-wise. In terms of movement, it looks like CGI. CGI has a stutter effect to it, as the exact same image, that of a 3D model, is dragged around. It takes some great direction to camouflage that effect, and it's something that Studio Orange is probably most famous for, video coming soon on Trigun. Despite looking great art-wise, something which the movies, and yes, the 2016 series didn't have, all three of these anime suffer from the movement of CGI. One proposal that I have that I'd love to see tried is software that can handle two separate character models at the same time, both models being the same character but both having slightly different line densities. This would mimic the Boyle effect and hopefully bypass that stutter look which 3D anime has, as it's given a more hand-drawn style. I think it's kind of funny that half of the dialogue that we see in this Bonfire of Dreams scene is concealed by angles and swords. The only time we see mouths moving is in medium distance because, yes, it still looks like little flaps of flesh. I also love how stiff and clunky Guts walking away at the end is, and oh, canonically his joints are stiff at this point. It's a shame that the models can look so much better visually, but the movement will always be an issue because means around it, like what I just proposed, is too expensive, because the real reason CGI is used here is for the cheapness. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. What do you think of the Memorial Edition? Leave your comments and thoughts down below, like the video for more and subscribe for more, because obviously this countdown reveals something. Thanks to my patrons, and have a wonderful night.